In this video, I wanted to demo some of the top-down shooter prototypes that I've worked on. I've actually done quite a few of these. I think I find the genre kind of interesting, and haven't quite found one that feels like it's working for me just yet. The first few started out as game jam projects, and I tried a handful of different approaches to procedurally generating maps and dungeons. These first designs were very much room-based, with the idea being that you would enter a room, fight the monsters that were in it, and then move on to the next room, exploring the labyrinth as you went and searching for the exit. Later on, I started to experiment with more open arena designs, where instead of navigating a labyrinth of rooms, you were just moving around in a space that had some obstacles and terrain to deal with. In these designs, progression was based around defeating waves of monsters rather than exploring and navigating a map. The most recent versions of this idea abandoned terrain and maps almost altogether and switched to open arenas with basically no obstacles at all. I also really scaled back the graphic style, going down to basically 1-bit single color sprites. Something that I like about this style is that it feels like it makes visual effects really kind of pop out. Lighting and particle effects really stand out from the basic graphics in the background. The more recent prototypes also have various character classes to choose from. This moves away from the twin-stick shooter idea a little bit, but I think there's something interesting to explore with melee characters and short-range fighters in this style. So far, I don't feel like I've really found enough variety in the characters, though. The two ranged characters, the mage and the hunter, feel very similar to each other, as do the two short-range characters, a barbarian and a cleric. I also think this genre really benefits from multiplayer, and while online multiplayer seems pretty ambitious for an early project, local multiplayer feels pretty attainable. So I've implemented some degree of local multiplayer in all of these prototypes. An interesting multiplayer dynamic here is this revival mechanic, where one player can stand next to the grave marker from another player, and if they can stay in that region long enough, they'll revive the other player. I implemented this partly because I often find it frustrating when there's a number of lives mechanic in these kinds of games, since one player can wind up dying a couple of times in a row, and the other player is left sort of alone with the last life until they die separately. And that can be a little bit frustrating or disappointing. So here the game only ends if all of the current players are dead at the same time. In spite of the very lo-fi retro-style graphics and sounds, I've actually been finding that I enjoy the retro-style prototype the most so far. Something I've realized about all of them, though, is that they currently feel very safe. The stakes aren't very high, and the characters all feel a bit overpowered. There's nothing really compelling the player to make any careful or strategic choices or do anything other than run around and shoot all the time. So some things that I'll be trying to tweak going forward with this idea will be to increase that sense of risk by making the players a bit more vulnerable, reducing their life totals, making it easier for them to die, and also trying to find an interesting ammo style mechanic that would reward players for timing their shots much more carefully. There's a lot that I like about this genre and the gameplay that's come out of the prototypes I've done so far. So I'm almost certainly going to be spending a little more time on these kinds of ideas in games and seeing if I can get one of them to move forward a little bit and be more compelling than they are so far. I think those adjustments to risk and tactics will help a lot. So that's the rundown of the twin stick shooter prototypes I've been working on. I hope you found at least some parts of this interesting or informative, and thanks for watching.